Listen, thank you every single each and one of you, mad lads. This wouldn't be possible without you. Listen to my crazy ass just sit in the room, talk to a fucking camera all the time. It really does blow my mind that you guys are just absolutely crushing it. Thank you for all the subscribers. Thanks for the likes. Thank you for commenting on the videos. I love you guys. Now, video is going to be a little bit different because I have to use 1D4chan. Because unfortunately, the archive version, it's kind of worse for wear. So we're gonna be using the 1D4chan version of this, and instead of me having this captured inside of the video, I'm going to be editing the PNG of a screen cap over the video so that it is much easier to read and much better captured. Now, without further ado, the Old Man Henderson Tale. The origin of Old Man Henderson. Waffle House millionaire. 7, 6, 10. That's right. You're looking at August 6th, 2010. I hate derailing a thread on accident. Wants to hear the tale of Old Man Henderson, the character who won Call of Cthulhu. Anonymous 627. I do. Alright then. I'd like to start by saying that the Game Master was a bastard who had it coming. By the way, if you didn't figure it out already, this video is never going to be monetized. Bullshit tactics that make everyone go crazy, like a D6 with only 5 sides. No story, no reason, lose 10 sanity. The others continue to allow this faggotry. We were just playing a modern day setting, and with the other players being a college professor who found out a couple of stray pages of a copy of the Necronomicon and wanted to find out just what the hell it was. A detective who was investigating a missing persons case connected to the local cult, and a local athlete, I think it was football, trying to find out why some of his friends seemed so distant lately. And then there was Old Man Henderson, who was never given a first name. Old Man Henderson was a little crazy, and blamed his life's misfortunes on Vietnam. He never went to Vietnam. He was 12 in 1974, and I'll be fucking amazed if anyone gets that reference. Not everyone does. It is the song My Brother-in-Law by Tim Wilson, as far as I can tell. Old Man Henderson wore combat boots, cargo shorts, and an open front Hawaiian shirt with a wife beater underneath. Illustration here. He was dyslexic and had a lesser case of schizophrenia, probably referring to schizotypal, allowing him to assume that the reason he saw crazy shit was because he was a little bit crazy. He had a Grizzly Adams beard and wore his hair in a mohawk. He never took off his aviator shades for any reason. He had a stuffed parrot on his shoulder, named Rupert, that he constantly asked for advice, while ignoring the other party members as convenient, assuming they were hallucinations. He had an automatic combat shotgun that he knew how to use. He'd also memorized the Anarchist's cookbook. He started the game with a pre-existing hatred of religion, cutlery, and books. His motivation was that he thought the cult had stole his lawn gnomes, while he had actually donated them to a charity auction, got high, and forgotten about it. And most importantly, he had a 320-page backstory that justified everything from his casual knowledge of physics to his ability to flawlessly speak Portuguese. You can just imagine the amount of shenanigans that this character was involved in. The point to having such a long backstory was threefold. First, to ensure that the Game Master would never actually fucking read it. And second, since he could never read it except for in excerpts, I pointed out to justify things, and I could rewrite and change things around randomly without anyone noticing. And most importantly, third, convince everyone that I was serious about this character and that I wasn't simply the game-wrecking bullshit that it was. Dickish, yes, but he did really have it coming. First outing of the group. The detective was spying on the building of the cultists with a camera. The jock was parked nearby, waiting for the group to let out so he could snoop it out. The professor had joined the cult to try and gain information. Old Man Henderson very calmly parked his car, got out holding the shotgun in clear view of anyone who happened to be looking. In this case, the detective and the jock strolled up to the front door and kicked it in. While everyone just kind of stopped in shocked silence for a moment, he leveled his shotgun on the lead priest, the cultist guy, and yelled, and always keep him a wee man. Did I mention that he had a nigh incomprehensible Scottish accent that came and went as he drank and or as amused me? The leader couldn't understand my simple request to return my lawn gnomes. Literally, you think what I typed is hard to understand? Imagine it being slurred to you by a drunken Scotsman. He assumed I was trying to cast a spell at him in an elder tongue and summoned a Shoggoth by murdering one of his fellows. One Molotov, and about 20 rounds later, the Shoggoth is dead, as is the cult leader. The professor, he made the mistake of trying to be peacemaker amid murderous rampage, as well as about 10 assorted cultists. Old Man Henderson then pissed on the Shoggoth's corpse, got back in his 92 Buick Century, and went home. The whole event was over in about 10 minutes game time, and nobody thought to get the Buick's plates. The building burned down shortly, along with about half of the written plot, as every lead either of the surviving players had. The Game Master called a break then to figure out how to fix or work around what I just did. And it only got crazier from there. I must have more, good sir. Typing up the full exploits of Old Man Henderson would take too long. Can I just give you the highlights reel? I will settle for that. Alrighty then. Some of his finer moments include dropping a yacht onto a penthouse owned by Cthulhu cultists, the stealing of said yacht from cultists of Hastur, thereby starting a cultist gang war, the tanker truck incident, and my personal favorite, Hell on Ice. Which one do you want to hear about first? Dashing Bastard. Dropping the yacht. Let's take it from the top. God, I love Old Man Henderson. Trust me, it's way more funny than you would think. Dropping the yacht. Old Man Henderson, with his erstwhile companion Jimmy, the jock, and his friends William Brocklaw, a once humble bartender, the now dead detectives player. Old Man Henderson burned down his bar on accident and blamed it on the cultists. One bluff check later and he's in the posse. And Simon Breckenridge, British spy, the professor's player, now 6 characters in. And yes, they were all more or less killed by Old Man Henderson. Old Man Henderson had discovered that there was not one cult to the older gods, but several. This complicated his search for his known crusade, and he decided to enlist help in making the problem solve itself. Using his contact, Simon discovered that an influential cultist of Hastur was coming to town to try and figure out how an avatar of his god was killed. He also located the exact dock on which he would be landing his boat. Jimmy, meanwhile, discovered the home of the head of the local Cthulhu cultist. It was at a penthouse suite downtown. The plan was hatched. Old Man Henderson used all of his cunning to steal a military cargo helicopter. Reed shoryukened the pilot and flew off, and hid it in an abandoned warehouse. Jimmy and Will set up a very expensive surround sound system speaker at the docks, while Simon made and planted a lot of smoke bombs. That night, the yacht pulled in, and we made our move. Right as Simon maneuvered the helicopter over the docks, we set off the smoke bombs and activated the speakers. On one side, a 50-piece marching band playing God Save the Queen at max volume, and on the other, the audio from the beach scene from Saving Private Ryan. Imagine, for a moment, being on the dock in fucking chaos. I jumped down from the helicopter onto the boat and rigged it to lift out of here, during the course of which I ran into the cultist guy and ninja kicked him in the head, knocking him tail over tea kettle and off the boat. I later learned that he broke his neck in the fall. Damn convenient, otherwise he might have been able to ID me. We then lifted the boat out of there, switched to our secondary audio on all sides. My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. I was in a vengeful mood. No stealing bastards. So, when the cultists finally got the smoke to clear, their yacht was gone, and their leader was dead. And Celine Dion was stuck in their heads. Not the best of days. Then we went across town in a stolen military cargo chopper, carrying a 40-foot yacht, and parked the helicopter above the penthouse, with the yacht about 80 feet above it. Then we cut the line, jumped out with our parachutes, and watched the yacht ruin a dinner party while placing bets on whether the military would save the chopper, blow it up, or if it would just hover there until it ran out of fuel. The tanker truck incident. Now, time for what will forever be known as the tanker truck incident. Notice "the" is capitalized. This is because no matter what incidents in the future may involve tanker trucks, this is the definitive one. It started out innocently enough. Old Man Henderson left the stakeout in a van outside the evil cult's meeting place to go get some hooch. The only people left there were the detective and James Fink, the professor's second character. Jimmy was gone because it was a school night. Old Man Henderson was a bad influence, but damn if he didn't have the kid's best interests at heart. The cultists see me leaving. I had a very distinct appearance after all. Very useful in scoring TPKs. And discover my friends spying on them. The detective gets a pretty gar death and James dies like a bitch. But not yet. I'm on my way back, walking along. The detective and James had been brought inside as part of a ritual to give Hastur an avatar in our world. He had been banished, and the only way he could come here is via loophole. He could only use, as hosts, people who knew he existed, and had thwarted him twice. And then he had to make them drink the lifeblood of their closest friend to make the binding permanent. In case you're wondering, permanent binding equals game over. The first part of the ritual was completed, but before Hastur could take control, the detective broke James' shackles and he tried to run. He made it as far as the street, when the detective, now Hastur, caught up with him, part demon form. Now, where this church, for lack of a better term, was located was at the end of the road on a T-shaped intersection. There was a gas station about 3 blocks away, which is where Old Man Henderson was while this was going down. Old Man Henderson sees the shit hit the fan, and steals a half-full tanker that was refilling the station's holding tank. While I brim the truck up to ramming speed, I toss a 12-pound block of C4 in the passenger seat and rig the detonator to the airbags. Old Man Henderson then took a bracing shot of whiskey, jammed a knife through the gas pedal, and then jumped out of the truck onto his heelings. Yes, he modified his combat boots to have Heelys. I swear to God, I had not planned this to happen. The Heelys just sounded like something fucking ridiculous and in character. He watched the truck ram the detective into the church, then blew him and all the cultists to kingdom come. The truck also killed James by running him over. That's when the back trail ignited, fire going all the way back to the gas station and destroying it, continuing my streak of accidentally destroying anything that might lead people back to Old Man Henderson. I took a moment to call Jimmy. Henderson here. Figured out what the nasties are weak against. What's that, Mr. Henderson? Point blank annihilation? Click. Hell on ice. Okie doke. We were in the end game, with zombies and shoggoths chasing us. I managed to get Jimmy disappeared. So it was Old Man Henderson, Simon, and Will going to the final strong point we had, an abandoned hockey stadium. On the way there, we had ran through a small home and garden store in our truck. And when we arrived, we started barring the doors and windows, when I noticed something. Our trip through the store had netted us a passenger. A single lawn gnome. Somehow I knew right then that this was it. No lucky turn of fate, no deus ex machina. Old Man Henderson was going to die. But I'd be damned if it wasn't going to be the best fucking last stand ever. I then revealed to the game master that Henderson was a world champion figure skater, hockey player, and golfer. The backstory of Doom got one final use. We had got almost all of the doors barricaded, but the zombie Shoggoth army kicked into the last door and got Simon. Will was pulled off the Zamboni after he managed to throw the crate onto the ice. The crate, full of exploding hockey pucks. Lasted a couple of minutes while blasting Bust a Move, Young MC, before the situation resolved into totally fucked. I switched to the next track as I yelled, Hoster! 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 The next track came on. It was the Canadian National Anthem, which Old Man Henderson began to sing proudly at the top of his lungs. I then threw out the 3 pieces of knowledge that marked Old Man Henderson's blaze of glory. Calling Hasta's name 3 times will summon him, but only if the one who is truest foe at the time calls it. Guess who? When an elder god is summoned from beyond, they suffer a sort of summoning sickness. They're still unbelievably strong, but can be killed forever if you hit them hard enough. 3. The building had enough explosives wired to make Michael Bay blush. And that, my friend, is the tale of how Old Man Henderson won Call of Cthulhu. Anonymous. Shortly after this posted, I hereby suggest the use of Henderson's scale of plot derailment quake to be used from here in. 1 full Henderson rates as total derailment. Now, let's get on to the director's cut, which is where a lot of the meat and potatoes of this is. Don't worry. Waffle House Millionaire told it amazingly, but there's a lot of details Waffle House Millionaire left out. And his friend comes in. A self-called Nowhere. August 29th, 2012. 2:52. He never actually posted more than a quick summary of it, actually. Also, for those of you curious as to whether or not Old Man Henderson was real, yes. Yes, it was. I was there, I was the professor, and like 15 other fucking people. Because Henderson had no concept of collateral damage or inside voice. The whole and complete story was fucking crazy. Because crazy shit was happening in and out of game. And he only gave you guys a highlights reel. I might end up storytiming the whole thing, even though I'm not as eloquent as him. Seriously, I read the backstory of Doom. What he told you about it does not do it justice. White House Millionaire tends to get emotionally attached to a well-made character. To him, they're the means of exploring a story, and a good story is something he thinks the very foundations of modern society are based on. He doesn't mind a bad end so long as it's legitimate. Botched a roll at a bad time? Shit happens. Bad choice in character. Meant to be. Simply screwed by circumstance? Them's the shakes. Lol, you're dead because you actually had disagreed with my self-insert fetish-fueled character with 2 katanas? I actually had to stop him from choking the fat bastard. Which might make him sound like a bad person, ruled by petty emotion, but the truth is, he's like a bear. Normally pretty chill, not that easy to piss off normally. Though he doesn't move often, but when he does, things like Henderson happen. It was the 5th session of the game with an experienced GM using Trail of Cthulhu. A small distinction on the whole, but one worth mentioning in my eyes. And he had already lost 3 characters to the stupidest shit. Seriously, the last one, some evil force put a curse on him and he ended up being killed by a horse. Falling out of an airplane. Yeah. So the game master goes to grab the pizza, since it was his turn to pay, and I could feel the room cooling slightly. Lighthouse Millionaire, Waffle House Millionaire's expression never changed. He never looked at me, or the other 2 guys. I know you're thinking about leaving. I want you to stay. I want you to watch what I'm going to do. I knew this was bad, because while he can be frustrated mad, when he gets truly pissed, he gets calmed. By the way, it's hilarious when he gets frustrated mad. He makes like this choking noise in the back of his throat like a murloc caught in a trash compactor. We continue for the evening, and about a week later, he comes back. We come back. He's giving me a ride, and he looks like he hasn't slept in 2 days. And the stubble is almost, but not quite, into gangly half-beer territory. I've done something. I'm not sure it's a good thing yet. He says as he hands me the little binder he keeps his character sheets and notes in. You've done something? I ask as I take the folder from him. I created? No. Created is the wrong term. I feel like it was already there, waiting for me to give it life. I put a thing on paper and I'm bringing it down on that fat fuck like the wrath of God. I say as I look at the sheet. Is Henderson his first or last name? I don't even fucking know. So then I look at the stack of paper he called a backstory. I started reading it, and immediately I'm fascinated by what can only be called a tome of madness. It switched perspectives and tone wildly. At one point, it certain stage directions in the form of a script. At one point, it went to German. I know for a fact he only knows like 2 words in German, while I'm the one that's kind of fluent. The German was in his hand and grammatically flawless. I find my voice. What? Been asking myself that all day. All fucking day. So we get to the game. The game master asks what we're all doing. Detective guy's drinking alone at his desk, waiting for one of his contacts to get back to him. Jimmy, the jock type, is struggling with his math homework. My character, Professor Filkins, is grading midterms. Then we get the introduction to Henderson. He's sitting in a lawn chair in his house, smoking a bong, staring at a wall he painted to look like a Hawaiian beach. You know, Rupert, he addresses the stuffed parrot currently resting on the arm of his chair. You're a good friend. Most people would have asked for a hit, but you know how much I love this shit. Way better than we had back in Nam. He chuckles and then begins reminiscing. You know, I still remember the first time I got high. Back off of my brother's band. It must have been some good shit too, because I'm an only child. Ain't that right, Charles? He looks over to an empty corner of the room. Charlie? He then gets up mildly concerned. Man, what the hell? He begins to search the house in earnest before sitting down on a chair in his kitchen. Where the fuck are my lawn gnomes? I mean, did somebody steal them? Who the fuck would steal them? They're not worth what? Come on! He then pulls out a Sharpie and begins to scrabble on the table. Alright, 215 lawn gnomes, total weight about 800 pounds, total value approaching 40,000. Not a one-man job. Need help to carry them, need help to sell them. Looking at a large and well-organized group of assholes. He looks into the middle distance. Those guys down the street, the Mormons, right? Large resistance group come around in the early morning like those damn Charlies. Reeves, I think we got a lead. Then he poured a bottle of Jack Daniels in a large go cup and went and got in his car. Before I get back to the rest of the party, it should be noted that Henderson looks a lot like Jeff Bridges of today. So imagine all of his lines in that voice, because that's the voice we were treated at the table. Anyways, I've had the lead on a cult meeting for a while, and I managed to get an invite. I'm sitting in the front row, listening to a passionate Arab man talking about how there's more to the world than we know. Despite myself, I'm intrigued. Jimmy is sitting outside, talking about his friends and trying to decide if he should go in and talk to them or what. And the detective's gotten his call back and is now watching the scene with interest. A battered 92 Buick Century fails to get their attention until it suddenly executes a perfect handbrake turn and parks at the curb. Back to Henderson's point of view. He's blasting Creedence Clearwater Revival when suddenly he sniffs the air and says, "Mormons," before whipping around and parking out front and killing the car. He then gets out of the car and pops the trunk. In full view of the detective, he then shoves Lurid Lucy, an inflatable sex toy of exceptional quality, to one side and pulls out some sort of Israeli-made combat shotgun and starts walking towards the house. He then kicks open the door while our mouths are agape and shouts the word that let us know the game would never be the same. "Monar Cottage, are you now? Let's keep moving, man!" So, at this point, the game master has not realized what Henderson is. In fact, I think I'm the only one who truly understood what was about to happen to existential horror as at this point in time. Here's another fun fact about Waffle House Millionaire. When he's at a game character, when he's at a game table with a character sheet, you aren't at the table with him. You're at the table with whatever character he's playing until further notice. I don't think he could have metagamed if he tried. So anyway, the game master has decided to regain control the only way he knows how. By killing Mike's latest character with bullshit. So he summons a Shoggoth. Henderson, having passed the will check to not puke up his brains and winning the initiative, comes on how it's the ugliest fucking poodle ever. Oh god, and then shoots it in the face until it dies. Then he shoots the cultist guy who summoned it. Then he shoots me. Then a random guy that he pisses on the Shoggoth's corpse since everyone else is too busy losing their shit in a panic over the creature that should not be being summoned, and casually sets the tapestry on fire with a cigar as he walks out the door. So, then everyone still alive runs the fuck away from the burning building before the cops show up. Henderson makes it home about 3 blocks away when he realizes something horrible. He totally fucking forgot about the lawn gnomes. He runs back to the still burning building, only to see the fire department has already arrived. They inform him that no gnomes were in the building that they can tell. On the other hand, he is relieved as fuck since he didn't lose the gnomes, and killing that many people would probably constitute a hate crime. Never mind. I'm sorry. Give me a second. I can't ever read this with a straight face. I'm trying my damnedest. Alright. Never mind that he totally just leveled a church with the speed and brutality of the fucking Spetsnaz. Anyways, he goes to try and cook up where they could have gone at the local pub. The game master at this point looks up at us from his notes. He's clearly been thrown so far off the fucking tracks by what just happened that he can't just improv his way out of it. I think I need a minute or two. He grays and looks over to the man I thought I knew. He has his cell phone out. And is asking us if we're cool with Chinese food since we had pizza last week. "What the fuck was that?" asked one of our fellow players. "Remember when I said I was getting revenge? I brought out the big guns. I don't even have the small guns anymore. I was given some once and promptly returned them. Won't be needing these," I said. "Hello?" Chinese food place I forget the name of. You still got the special and the shrimp fried rice. So, when I ended the last story, we had a dead Shoggoth, a burning building, a bunch of MIA lawn gnomes, and we totally just ordered some bitching Chinese food. Anyway, at this point in the proceedings, Henderson decided that if he couldn't get a proper brainstorming going on at home as to the location of the gnomes, then he could always try Harry's bar. Good old Harry was scared proper shitless of Henderson after an incident with a commie bastard pinball machine prior to the game's start. So he could drink in peace and nobody really bothered him about the mounting tab. So he's sitting there working on a new plan of action with his two best friends, Mr. Daniels and Mr. Walker, when suddenly a news report comes on. Apparently, some woman was commenting on how the quite religious group a few blocks from the war had just gotten their shit wrecked. Henderson was very interested in knowing that they were not, in fact, Mormons, but rather disciples of the Yellow King, which apparently were a radical sect of Buddhism that had the details promptly ignored since there was a hockey game on. Then Henderson had a really good idea. Since somebody at the other table had the Dragnet theme as their ringtone, he knew fuck all about looking for people. But a PI.
The story you are about to see is true.
So, after a few minutes in the phone book, he decides to literally call the first name he saw under the private detective heading. By sheer freakish coincidence, the phone in the detective player's office starts to ring. Hello? I need a man who's good at finding things, doesn't have a great love of religious loonies, and doesn't mind maybe shooting an ugly-ass poodle or two. I'm sorry, but who is this? Name's Henderson. Need some help from a professional. No argument here. So you're looking to hire a PI? Yep, I had something precious stolen from me. And that was roughly $40,000 of lawn gnomes. There was a silence, both in-game and at the table. What? I'm not saying it was the cultist, but I'm pretty damn sure it was the cultist. Or aliens. But that seems unlikely given the circumstances. You're interested, we can get talking down at Harry's on the south side by the river. And then he hung up. Since the detective was quickly getting nowhere with his missing persons case, he decided it'd be good for a laugh. Henderson, meanwhile, had discovered that Henry had acquired a Pac-Man arcade machine, and decided to subsequently fill the scoreboard with profanity. So when the detective arrives, he asks for some guy named Henderson, and was promptly pointed to a man in unusual attire, who was teaching a girl how to shoot pool. Henderson? Hold on just a second. The important part of a shot in pool is to make sure it's smooth. Take all the times you need to line up the shot, and don't let them rush you. He says, and then he sinks his last 3 balls in the 8 in one stroke. He then turns to the detective, who promptly recognizes him and tries to leave. Too bad for him, Henderson decides to follow. So, how do you think we're going to go about this? I'm gonna get the hell in my car and leave the crazy-ass arson murder behind. No shit. He looks over his shoulder back at the bar. Oh, which one? He looks at the detective, poking him in the chest. What? The church! You burned down a church! They started it. Because you walked in with a shotgun? He asked, exasperated at the infuriatingly flawless logic of a complete asshole. No, because they stole my goddamn lawn gnomes. Yeah, you mentioned that. How do you steal $40,000 in decorative lawn fixtures? Where the hell did you even get that many gnomes? I worked briefly as a prostitute in Thailand. The antique gnome collection is my retirement plan. What? Ended up riding some dude's junk all the way back home. Hell of an uncomfortable ride, but let me tell you, not meant for the ocean blue, and I would know. You understand the logistics of riding another man's junk across the ocean? Well, in a general sense. I took a course on shipbuilding back in college. This is before they had those fancy navigational gypsy pathfinder space ferries. Okay. Alright, listen. You said you were looking for gnomes. Actually, that was earlier. Just now, I was explaining that I knew so much about catching a ride on somebody's junk just because of vigorous study in my youth. Let's focus on the gnomes. You think they were stolen by a cult? The only thing that makes sense from what I know. I want you to look into the disciples of the Yellow King. See if they're doing anything suspicious. Actually, yeah, I was looking into them already for another reason. Looks like they've got a hand in human trafficking. Lawn gnomes seem like an odd direction to go in. But I won't deny that you're, fine, they're up to no good. I'll let you know if I find anything worth talking about. Sounds good. I'm usually at Harry's unless I'm not. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get off a man about a horse. Henderson then walked across the street, stole a bicycle, and rode off into a plot hole for a brief period of time. Now, here's the question. Do you guys give a shit about non-Waffle House Millionaire related things? Because the rest of us were trying to play a somewhat serious game around him, and I wanted to know if you guys wanted the whole story or just the shenanigans. Several votes for the whole story later. Alright. So at this point, the guy playing the detective decided to give my character an easy ride in with the group, since poor Jimmy was still on his lonesome for the moment. In rolls James Fink, one of the several characters whom Henderson had killed. And the only one besides Simon whose name ever got remembered by the rest of the group. James is a long-time friend of the detective, whose name I just remembered was Albert Johansson. Pronounced Johansson. For some fucking reason. Back when AI was still a cop, Jim was a thug for the local mob. They worked up the ladders of their respective organizations, gained the respect of their coworkers, and eventually ended up leaving their jobs on good terms with their bosses. In Jim's case, it was because his wife had a baby on the way then, and asked him to find safer work. Al ended up in a shootout, where his partner got killed fighting against a bunch of crazy meth addicts. Shortly after quitting, they ran into each other by coincidence, and discovered that the other one was the bastard who kept wrecking our job and getting away. And they ended up becoming fast friends. This continued on a regular basis for several years until the Henderson situation, and Al decided he wanted backup. There was nobody in the world he trusted more. So, Jim said as he walked into the office, "Who's the client?" "Some crazy motherfucker named Henderson." His first name or his last name? Man, I have no fucking clue. Alright, so what's he want? Apparently he thinks a cult stole his antique lawn gnome collection. So drop the nutter. 2 good reasons not to. The cult he's accusing, I honestly believe to be involved in both activity illegal and bizarre. The other is that any man who can afford to just have 40 grand in gnomes lie around can probably write a paycheck. Why the hell does somebody have 40? Don't tug on this particular string, Jim. Just trust me. Just don't. So, what's our first lead? Well, I was gonna go kick around in the ashes of a church my new boss burned down and see if there were any witnesses. Wait, our boss caused that church fire? Yeah. So, you're in? I need to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. That evening, they went to the site and discovered the Shoggoth's corpse. There wasn't enough left of it to force sanity checks, but plenty to make them start asking some pointed questions. The professor ended up on the list of people to look into when this body was identified, and then they found the page of the Necronomicon. Recognizing the occult symbols on it, the detective dropped it off at his office, while he went to ask if he could borrow a notebook out of the cold case evidence lockers. Henderson, meanwhile, discovered that during a recent bender, he had agreed to chaperone a dance at the local high school, so he swings by the detective's office to let him know where he'll be. So he's at the office, and he meets Jim, and asks him to pass along the info to Al, and then snatched the scrap of the Necronomicon on the way out of the door saying he needed paper. Jim failed his spot to notice which sheet he took. The game master fudged it, probably assuming Henderson was going to read it and he could kill him off via sand damage. Boy, howdy was he wrong. So Henderson shows up to the dance in his usual attire, slightly less scruffy than usual, and volunteers to sit outside and make sure punks from the other schools didn't try and gatecrash the party. The more proper people were glad to keep him out, since that meant he wouldn't be able to corrupt the youth. Henderson was glad because there was no way they let him smoke the monster blunt he just rolled inside. I then realized, as he lit an atomica, as he called it, a blunt roughly the size of a Cuban cigar, that there was currently only one piece of paper on his person. As soon as I found out where he was, in character, I went to the school to try and prevent the inevitable. Meanwhile, Jimmy, the jock, was sitting outside, sad because his girlfriend didn't come, because she was too busy being a crazy fucking cultist. Henderson decides to introduce him to the wonderful world of substance abuse, and just like an absolute bro, passes the blunt. To be honest, I'm totally surprised this moment didn't make the original story, since smoking the giant book of bad juju was the best thing to ever happen on accident. So Jimmy took a hit and totally failed every check the GM sent his way. He saw Jesus, and then Jesus turned into a giant squid thing. In the deep distance, the lead softened the blow by masking everything behind a cartoony afterglow. So imagine for a moment watching Elmer Fudd scream, and shooting Daffy in the face. Only instead of a fucked up beak and muttering of, "This means water," he screams, "He comes!" And tentacles rips out of his form to molest the local wildlife. This is the part where I had to go to the door and retrieve the precious shrimp fried rice. But I came back to, so wait, I only lost 15 sanity? Yeah. What now? I pass it back. Henderson, of course, manages to ace the test and comments on how this is some really good shit, man. Now, Jimmy is a lightweight. Jimmy then does a bit better, and they get to swapping stories. Pretty soon the cult comes up and they agree to join forces for the sake of cute girls next door, and lawn gnomes everywhere. Sadly, that roach burned fast and hard. So, when me and Al got there, all we saw was the crazy old fuck and some ginger teenager crashed together against the wall, giggling at the squilly squid things in people's heads. So, we then discover the kid's connection to the madness, and promptly discover what he knows. This leads to the three people who didn't have school tomorrow, both in and out of game, to prepare a stakeout of some church. At this point, we all get into Jim's van, park down the street from a church. The church happens to be on the end of a road at a T-shaped intersection, and we're parked a ways up from it. Man, stakeouts are boring. No shit, Henderson. You have anything useful to contribute? Not really? I should have brought a book or something. Would you be paying attention to the building if you had reading material? Not really. Then I guess that would defeat the purpose of a stakeout, wouldn't it? Not if the two of you were watching. Oh, we could have had the two of us watching the third man playing bait. You'd volunteer for that? beats the fuck out of sitting in a van with two dudes who won't even let me smoke. Didn't you smoke evidence last time you lit up? I would regret nothing. Fuck it, you guys hungry or something? I'm gonna go grab some munchies from the gas station. Bring coffee. And some cheese doodles. Back in. Fuck it, just leave the doors unlocked. And he went in search of snacks. When he hopped out of the van, one of the cultists happened to see him on a lucky roll. And as he walked around the corner into the gas station, they ran out and beat the shit out of the two of us left behind. About the time we got dragged into the building, Henderson had finally gotten out of the bathroom. About the time we got tied to the altar, Henderson had stopped to try on hats. About the time the ritual reached its heights, Henderson was debating which AC/DC album was best with the cashier. The end result of that argument was that while they couldn't decide if Back in Black or Dirty Deeds was the best album, Back in Black is. Black Ice was pretty boss and heralded only good. Damn straight. So then, with some tense tests of willpower and resolve, Al managed to free Jim and hold off the cultists, while an evil presence steadily took chunks off of his sanity score until he was no longer able to rest. Smiling in malicious glee, Hoster began to stalk his new prey. At this point in time, Henderson had just walked out of the store, just in time to see my character get murder-clomped by a monster wearing my friend's face. So he does the only logical thing he could. He stole a fucking fuel truck. So then we find out he was packing C4 and was making all sorts of tests while gunning it towards the road with the fucking tanker. He made it and bailed just in time for the truck to hit him off of me and run my ass over. Hoster rode that truck to its end, while Henderson placed a call to Jimmy. Hey kid. Hey kid, Henderson here. Found out what the Nazis are weak against. What's that, Henderson? Point blank annihilation. He then hangs up the phone and proceeds to walk off. I finished bleeding to death 2 turns later. That's right! Motherfucker left me to die. Sure, it wasn't like I was screaming for help, but he could have at least checked! Since I'm not sure how familiar TG is with certain Cthulhu-based rulebooks, I was basically in what D&D calls alive with negative hit points. So helpless, dying, but still hope. Until the back trail ignited, and the tiny amount of fire damage ended me. My one consolation was that the fire blew up the gas station, and took the bar he left me for with it. Then the detective player, after the fastest reroll I've ever seen, entered stage left. William Brocklaw runs in and yells about his newly refurbished bar that just got destroyed on the evening of its grand reopening. Hey man, if it makes you feel any better, I can help you get back at the people who did this. Who are you? Name's Henderson. This is my right hand. Rupin. And you know who did this? I'm fairly certain I do. Ever heard of the Disciples of the Yellow King? Are you saying that this was done by cultists? Look, I'm not saying it was cultists. Yeah, but it was probably cultists. Come on, your bar might be gone, but it's the only watering hole in town. You ever heard of a pub called Harry's? You look like you could use a drink. At Harry's bar, he got filled on what Henderson knew while getting a couple of drinks, quote-unquote, on the house. I probably would have been there too, were I not slightly pissy about losing 2 characters in as many sessions. After a few minutes of back and forth, Will decides he'll get in on it if Henderson can provide some proof as to the whole evil cultist thing. So why'd you decide to go after them? Revenge, mostly? Really, what happened? Same bastard who blew up your car killed 2 of my buddies. This is after they stole all my fucking lawn gnomes. Damn. Tell you what, when we catch the guy, I'll hold him still while you kill him. Mighty generous of ya. This was the point where we called it for the evening. And at the start of the next session, Henderson headed up a daring plan to kidnap one of the heads of the cult. I'll tell that one next time, but quick spoiler. I managed to get 3 of my own characters killed in one session. Yeah. Director's Cut, Part 3. A Self-Called Nowhere. The 8th month, 11th day, 2012. I've got enough free time to do the story of Henderson's hat trick. While killing a god is cool and all, that happens a lot in tabletop games. Granted, it was a first for a Call of Cthulhu-inspired game, but I digress. Henderson has another record that I find far more irritating for obvious reasons. Henderson is the only player character I've ever seen manage to kill the same player's characters 4 times in a single session. Namely mine, the bastard. I'm gonna type this up in chunks around what I'm already doing, so don't be surprised if this takes a while. Technically, I mistyped the end of the last thread. I re-rolled 3 times in one setting, but I already had one character ready to go at the beginning. When we first arrived for the game that day, I was determined to not get upset at a character death. It's just a game, I'll pretend! I failed eventually. I don't even remember the name of my first character. The session began with the cultists using a mob front, planning to kill the son of a rival crime family, incidentally, the same one Jim used to work for. I was playing the role of bodyguard, and I was quickly knocked out and thrown in the trunk of one car while the kid was loaded into the backseat of another. Enter stage left, Henderson and Will. They see them wacky cultists up to no good, and they decide to nick the whole vehicle with a visible hostage. While Will hotwired it, Henderson punched a hole in the gas tank of their second car and lit it off. They then sped away after unknowingly leaving my character to burn, screaming in the trunk of the second car. Approximate elapsed time between the start of the session and first character death, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. I promptly rolled up a second character and agreed with the game master that I should wait more until an appropriate time came out to join the scene, rather than in the middle of a drive across town. They then decided to pull into a local bar with the Don's kid to help him get off his problem. My second character of the evening's name was Ronald. Ronald was a used car salesman coming off the tail end of a bad divorce, in which his wife gained all their worldly possessions and then promptly killed herself and left it all to the new church she found, the Disciples of the Yellow King. At this point in time, he was playing darts. Unbeknownst to him, a cultist from that church just let loose a powerful entropy curse after the car that was stolen from them. A curse with a very specific target. The brake lines of the car, coming in for a hard stop just outside. Ronald looked at the perfect game he was playing and felt genuine joy for the first time in weeks. Then he was ripped in half by a BMW coming in through a brick wall behind him, and this was less than 10 minutes after the first death of the evening. Henderson gets out of the car, and the bartender with mob connections immediately sticks a gun to his face. What the bloody hell you think you're doing? I'm trying to escort him, young man, to safety. Cultists must have cut the brakes. The bartender then recognizes the Don's son. Calls him over to see if he's alright. Danny, the boy, is confused but mostly unhurt. This saved Henderson's life. But the game master sadly refused to let me just take control of such a politically powerful character just to get back into the game quicker. So I started to roll up another, a cop, looking into a lead in a weird house across town. A weird house connected to a cold case that his old friend Al asked about immediately before his mysterious death in the middle of a huge explosion. A place the mob had just told Henderson and Will should have answers for some of the questions they had as a favor for saving their son. They get there after me and open the door to creep inside. I've already investigated the upstairs and found notes saying something about a lab in the basement. Henderson, in the meantime, had gone straight down on the logic of what the hell kind of evil cultist just fucks around in the living room until they've got a creepy-ass fellow to play with. He finds an old summoning circle down there and decides to spit in its general direction, accidentally activating it as he walks out the far door, finding nothing of interest in the room. Upon discovering that this other door leads outside, he circles back around the house and winds up in the study with Will. Meanwhile, with my new lead pointing me at the basement, I run, see the horrible thing taking shape, botch the fuck out of my save against to crawl into fetal position and cry while losing 2d10 sanity. Henderson, meanwhile, picks up a book off the shelf and flips it to a random page. What the hell kind of gobbledygook is this anyways? How are you supposed to pronounce this? Oh yeah, Cthulhu Flagon? Hikri, Farel, Alas Arrakis, Paul de Foix? He turns to Will, completely oblivious to the potential beast he just conjured into existence behind him, cocked eyebrow barely visible above the rim of his sunglasses. What does that even mean? What's the point of wasting paper on that sort of nonsense? Will, having barely failed his sanity check, loses 5 points from the score, and points behind him muttering something about a thing that should not be. Henderson chuckles and says he's not gonna fall for that one again. Last time he did, the tranny he was interrogating vis-a-vis his lawn gnomes had Hairpin beat the shit out of him and steal his wallet. So he leads Will to the kitchen, leaving the monster to its own devices. In the kitchen, Henderson continues to be disappointed with the continuing lack of clues. Meanwhile, the professor is overjoyed to discover that the liquor cabinet was never emptied by the previous owners, and helps himself to a bottle. Then the local cultists, getting a report of Henderson's location, proceed to kick in the door to come kill him. 3 of them are eaten by the thing Henderson summoned in the study, and while they're screaming, the 2 of them take a peek at the next room, and Henderson smashes all the alcohol and lights it off while they run out the back door. The abomination in the basement with me does nothing of importance while I regain my wits and attempt to leave. I burst out the way I came, see the fire, and immediately have a second breakdown caused by a pre-existing phobia of fire, which I randomly rolled for, and then I die burning, screaming in pain and terror. Much like the cultists and the monsters. Meanwhile, Will is asking Henderson why his car only has Creedence Clearwater Revival playing ever. It turns out that it's because the CD is jammed in there and the radio's broke. And Henderson just never bothered to fix it because Creedence is awesome. So they happily ride away, listening to Around the Bend, while I fucking died for the 3rd time in the last hour! At this point, I was beginning to get a little bit pissy, and break my promise to myself to not let the game get to me. I roll up another character, determined to do something of consequence in this session. I end up with a nasty street-fighting thug named Patrick. Somebody in a yellow robe gave Pat a pile of money and a picture of Henderson, asking him to make sure he disappeared. Now, normally Pat would think twice about accepting such a shady deal since he preferred to rough people up, since it couldn't get you a 25 to life. However, it was a lot of money, and I was getting to be very bitter about the whole dying every fucking session thing. So Pat agreed to the job. I figured that this would end with me either killing Henderson, or us getting into a scuffle and then Pat switching teams. How wrong was I? Turns out, Henderson's not a particularly tough fellow to find, since there's only one crazy old fucker with a mohawk and a Hawaiian t-shirt running around reeking of cheap whiskey and porcelain. When Pat kept up with him, Henderson was taking a piss in an alleyway on the cardboard home of a hobo that just tried to mug him, now dead. As he finishes up, Pat taps him on the shoulder and he turns. "You Henderson?" "Indeed I am." And then Pat's right hook hits him in the face and smashes his aviator shades into a useless mess of metal and glass shards. At which point, Henderson very calmly pulls it off his face, pulls out a spare pair of shades, puts them on and comments, "Well, that was kind of rude." Then Pat caught him with a left. Henderson then tosses the second useless pair of sunglasses aside, dons a third set, and then says, "Nah, son, I've only got one more pair on me, and I've got considerably less patience than that. What the bloody old living fuck hell are you doing?" "I got good money from a man in yellow saying that you're no good son of a bitch who needs to be put down." At this, Henderson puts on a very surprised and concerned face. "A man in yellow, you say? Son, I'm afraid there's been a very big mistake here." "I've been lied to?" "No, you're pretty spot on." Henderson replies before shooting out both my knees with his concealed handgun, followed by a pair to the balls. "But no man gets between me and me wee men." And then he walked out of the alleyway, leaving me to bleed to death. And everyone at the table kind of looks shocked at the fact that Henderson just blatantly executed a player character right there. I will admit to flipping my shit a bit while the GM went to consult his notes. I confronted him. "Why the fuck did you just kill me?" "What?" "You just fucking shot me dead. I shot a random guy who threatened my life and started trying to beat the shit out of me in the middle of a crime scene when I just totally murdered a hobo." Yes, I did." "What possible reason could I have not to shoot you?" "It's me, you cock! I've already died like 3 times today!" That's metagaming. I went to make the call for takeout, knowing that I would have hit him if I stayed. Stuff called Nowhere. August 12th, 2012. Before anybody says something, I know getting violently angry over a game is stupid. That's why I walked away before it got the better of me. Nobody in the group, except for maybe the Game Master, was that guy, but we all had a tendency or two that could have put us in that category. Waffle House Millionaire has a thing about the rules and about characters that I'm pretty sure are signs of his OCD coming to the fore. It's a really mild case, so you wouldn't even know he had it if you didn't notice little things, like the fact that he has never had a volume set for an odd number. If there are rules in place for a game, he expects them to be followed as written. If someone modifies the rules for some reason, that's fine, as long as he knows in advance that there's a change. The dice land as the dice land, and he tends to be very chill on the whole, as long as you don't manage to piss him off. Me, I like being a team player. I honestly hate playing a multiplayer game if it means going against my friends. I think this quirk may have eventually rubbed off on Waffle House Millionaire as far as VGL are concerned, but I digress. So, one of my sore spots is basically infighting. If 2 people have to start a fight in character or out of character, it ruins the fun for me. I don't give a shit if the random kobolds were beating up or having a bad day. I give no shits about some random guy in a server I keep sniping. But that guy I'm shooting isn't Dave, my friend who let me move in after I had a bad breakup. That kobold isn't Mike's new player character. Personally, I think that this is where the line between that guy and the rest of us is drawn. We're all geeks and nerds. Given what gets posted on /TG and 4chan at large on a daily basis, I think it's fair to say that we're all assholes to some degree as well. But we all have in us some quality or two that might be detestable. The difference between us and that guy is that we're trying to at least be acceptable, if not good. But now I've gotten off topic a bit. I opted to go for a quick drive to get the pizza since it was a bit cheaper, and we were taking a break anyway. Waffle House Millionaire decides to go with me, defeating the purpose of me trying to get away and clear my head. On the way was probably the time where we actually became friends. You see, up until this point, we'd just been kind of hanging out in the same group, playing games and shit, but on this day, I don't know what prompted it, but I got angry, and I kind of yelled at him. He took it in stride, came back with a reasoned argument, and let the matter drop. On the way back, we bickered over stupid shit, but I think out of all the crazy shit I've seen and done with him, near-death experiences, epic games, LAN parties, late nights having to go help a friend, that time he talked down a jumper, this was the one that stuck with me the most. Partly because I'd never before seen anybody just let their guard down and be honest like that. I won't share what we talked about except this. He actually bought Sane Anger. Waffle House Millionaire. August 12th, 2012. 1:31 a.m. For fuck's sake, are you ever gonna let me live that down? Self Called Nowhere. That CD was fucking garbage and you know it. Waffle House Millionaire. I didn't know at the time. Fuck, Metallica is pretty consistently awesome. How the hell was I supposed to know that that was the album that they were gonna fuck up? It was 2 fucking years before we even met, and I already apologized for it. A Self Called Nowhere. Make all the fucking excuses you want, man. The truth's out there now. Now all the other internet's gonna know you done goofed. Now, back to the story at hand. We get back to the table, and the Game Master has some new stuff lined up. I decide to opt out of re-rolling and rejoining, even though we were only like halfway through the session, because I wasn't ready to have another character killed just yet. Will and Henderson bounce around, trying to find a lead to work with for the whole revenge plot they were kind of working on. They ended up meeting with Jimmy to try and talk his girlfriend out of being a cultist, which ended up fantastic. Jimmy basically agrees to go to one of the meetings if she promised to seriously have a chat with him afterwards about the whole joining a cult thing. She agreed, basically telling him that he totally changed his mind once he saw what it was all about. Now, Jimmy was a smart boy, and he called Henderson's cell phone for backup, in case things went south. So, pretty soon, Henderson and Will are sitting outside the church on the curb, waiting. Henderson breaks the silence. Man, I fucking hate stakeouts. They aren't that bad. Last time I was on a stakeout, 2 of my friends got killed and your bar bent down. Does this shit happen on a regular basis with you? Not causing it. Well, not usually. I remember I got arrested about a year ago for scanning cooked shitless. What? Why? I told the motherfucker I was allergic to olives. I get olives on everything. I could have fucking died if I didn't. Check it out. Here's a silence. Then, fuck it. There's a Best Buy and a video rental place around the corner. I vote we get one of those portable DVD things in a movie. Fuck yeah. Shit. We're just here in case Jimmy calls us. Let's get baked to watch something funny. So, they went out, got a copy of Grandma's Boy, got high, and laughed their asses off. In public, outside a church, they're supposed to be watching for cultists that already know what Henderson looks like. 1 second, I need hydrange. Surprisingly, nothing comes of this until Jimmy calls them from inside the church. Apparently, they just called up some kind of demon and told it to eat his girlfriend and him as a sacrifice to their god. His girlfriend, shocked at the sudden change in tone from the companionable, welcoming air that was there before, suddenly realizes that cults aren't as awesome as she thought. And that's when Henderson and Will run inside, guns drawn. Jimmy, wise man he is, grabs his girlfriend and ducks, while full auto shotgun spray kills every motherfucker in the room. They go outside and into the car. Henderson starts it up, while Will keeps the arson streak alive and sets the building on fire. As they pull away, Carrie, Jimmy's girlfriend, goes all, "My hero," on them, and soon the 2 freaking teenagers are getting busy in the back street. Will looks shocked while Henderson lights the bong up and starts hotboxing while cranking up the stereo. Which is when they passed a cop going in the opposite direction. To this day, I giggle to myself, thinking about what that cop must have been thinking when he saw that. There's Henderson, driving the car, taking a hit off of a bomb the size of God. Next to him is a dude who looks like a slightly less fat Kevin Smith, looking bored out the window. There's so much smoke, you'd think the car's on fire. There's a couple of people obviously fucking in the back seat. I'd like to think that he was thinking about his family, or going to watch a hockey game at the bar with his friends, or maybe finally asking that cute waitress out. Some part of me desperately wants to know why it took him 2 blocks to process what he just saw. Henderson just keeps going, not a care in the world. The cop turns around and starts to follow him. Henderson keeps going. Cop turns on his lights. Henderson keeps going. Sir, pull over the vehicle, the cops say into the loudspeaker. Henderson pulls into a drive-thru. The cop walks halfway through an order for tacos and politely asks what the fuck he's doing. Henderson responds with a "hold on a sec" gesture and finishes his order. Then he asks if the cop wants anything. The cop offers him to "please step out of the car, sir." Offers of a chalupa are denied. Henderson gets out of the car, a plume of smoke accompanying his exit. Jimmy and Carrie are kind of blushing and avoiding eye contact, mostly having recuperated. Will, having seen 3 cosmic horrors in the last day, killed a bunch of people and still coping with the loss of his bar, apparently has no fucks to give. He just sits there, high off his ass, wishing the fortunate son. The cop interrogates him as to why he didn't pull over, and Henderson responds that because he's colorblind, that he didn't realize that there was a cop behind him. The cop asks him why he smelled like weed, and Henderson replied that was because he just smoked a huge fucking bowl, but it's cool because he has one of those medical licenses. When asked about the kids in the back seat, he stated confusion and asked what kids before looking back and seeing Jimmy. "Hey, Jimmy, when'd you get there?" You came to pick us up." "No shit." He turned to the "tell you what, memories are the first thing to go, followed right by the memory. So how can I help you, officer?" After replaying the conversation a few more times, the cop made Will drive, and they left relatively unmolested with their tacos. You're reading that title right. We're finishing the Old Man Henderson Tale live on stream. And for you guys on YouTube, that is right. I'm giving a little bit of extra incentive towards my Twitch viewers, because they're here like every day, all the fucking time. If you want to get some early sneak peeks into what I'm doing for the Milestone videos, I recommend that you follow me on twitch.tv. There's going to be a link in the description. Feel free. Now, let's get on with the tale. I think when I left off on the last story, our intrepid heroes had just gotten their hands on tacos and narrowly avoided getting arrested. Henderson is formally introduced to Carrie at this point, and I declined the offer to take over her character to get back in the game. I already had a character in mind, and the session was almost over at this point anyways. Henderson, being the most responsible adult that he is, takes the kids to Harry's. "If you're old enough to kill cultists, you're good to drink," he told him, and he grabbed everyone a beer. We got most of the way into an elaborate The Big Lebowski reference when Mike finally asks a question in a tone of voice that suggested irritation. "What the hell are you guys talking about?" "What? I mean, you guys are clearly having a laugh at my expense. I don't mind that. I'm not getting the joke, and it's pissing me off." Dude, Henderson is basically the dude from The Big Lebowski. That can't be accidental. Hey, what's poppin', Inkson? It, it was. I've never seen the movie. Okay, wait, funny thing. So you know, this is gonna be in the video. So you know, this is gonna be in the video. For you that don't know what just happened, I have a redeem called Scree, where I screech. Now, I've never seen The Big Lebowski, and I figured maybe for like 200, or sorry, for like 150, between 200, we can watch The Big Lebowski in Discord together. What? Yeah, I've never seen The Big Lebowski? What the fuck do you mean you've never seen it? Not sure how that can be misinterpreted. I think my uncle mentioned it like in passing once. If you're wondering why I'm doing the accent Inkson, it's because he's Old Man Henderson has a like very bad Scottish accent, and so it's like really fucking worthwhile to do a bad Scottish accent. You know, try and pretend you're Shrek almost. It's great. Oh god, itchy. The game master agreed to call the evening right there, so he could work on the next part of the game while we dragged our fearless leader to watch what we thought was a fantastic movie. So at Harry's, they bump into my second to last character, Malcolm Reeves. Mal was a soldier who just got discharged from the military after a tour of duty sent him into a nest of monsters. He was diagnosed with schizophrenic hallucinations caused by PTSD and sent home. He overhears Henderson talking about cultists and deformed hell poodles, and asks if he can get involved. We move out. Oh, 1 second. We move out of the bar as evening begins to set in various degrees of drunk. We start with the building Henderson exploded. Nothing. We go back to the remains of the church Henderson burned down. Nada. Same story with the old mansion and the cult meeting we saved Carrie from. Fucking cultists! Not one clue anywhere! It yelled, dismayed. Maybe if it didn't burn everything down, we'd have more to work with, Mal suggests. We wage a scorched earth sort of war here, kid. But that can wait till we get a lead. Anyone have any ideas? Jimmy, Buzzwell on its way to wearing off, raises a hand. The internet? What the hell's an internet? And then Henderson learned something new about the world. Seeing as how Carrie and Jimmy's parents wouldn't want a trio of random dudes showing up to use their computers, they do the next most logical thing. Break into the library and use the public access lines. Sadly, Google had 0 useful results on their goddamn little fucking cultists. Disciples of the Yellow King, as Jimmy pointed out, and then corrected Henderson's spelling, had a list of locations and possible meeting times for various groups across the city. And if you're waiting for shit to get real, trust me, it's about to ramp into high gear really fucking fast. There were 10 unmolested locations, and several of them were having meetings this very night. Clearly, the game master was wanting us to get back to investigating. Henderson instead bought enough gasoline to make about 50 Molotovs, and we burned each and every one of those motherfuckers down that evening before dropping off the kids at home for a good night's sleep. Mal buys the first round as we watched the news, seeing our exploits all over TV. We all got a laugh when the cops apparently failed their assorted checks, tests, and investigations. Since we players decided as a group that going to confront possible suspects meant have no fucking clue what's up, and we're gonna go arrest Jeff Bridges, Kevin Smith, and Marshall Mathers. Triumphantly, we return home for the evening, and we all catch the news the next morning. Apparently, people are appalled by the hate crimes against this one religious group in the community, and they send their prayers with them. The head of the local cultists thanked the community for their concern, and said that he had the permission of the local government to gather together and pray for the souls of their departed in a local high school gym. Reminder: Old Man Henderson, likely just like a week prior, took a page out of the Necronomicon and rolled it into a freaking blunt at likely this fucking high school. So, shit's probably gonna be real. In retrospect, the GM telling us that every living cultist of Hoster would be gathered into one convenient location should have been a hint that it was a trap. Like, one big enough to be visible from space! This is when Henderson had a cunning plan. He was gonna go there and talk to the head cultist guy. I tell him that's a fantastic plan since Will already shared the summoning of the demon thing Henderson accidentally accomplished with him. So the new plan, of which Henderson was only vaguely aware, was that Jimmy was gonna help the deacon set up a slideshow thing for all the words of the prayer that he was going to lead. Henderson asked what significance lawn gnomes had in their worship. The deacon, after deducing that he was not in fact being mocked, explained that the church was rather neutral on the topic of lawn gnomes. For those of you here on Twitch, right at the end of this series of recordings, the entire reason that Old Man Henderson is involved with these cultists is because of he lost 40 grand of lawn gnomes and thought they stole them. Yep. $40,000 worth of lawn gnomes. In reality, he got really fucking high and donated them all to charity. And completely forgot. It's hilarious. Henderson then kept chasing the line as hard as he could, asking about things like human-gnome relations, whether the gnomes had souls, whether said souled gnomes could theoretically be used as sacrifices to Satan. The deacon then, and I'm quoting the game master here, and the only good line he had the entire game, gave Henderson a look. A look that can only be summed up as, dude, I fucked a Shoggoth and you're creeping me out. Oh my god. It's gonna be great. Jimmy then led Henderson away from the fracas, after he completed his secret mission of changing one of the slides about a third of the way into the show. That evening, the cultists prayed to Hosture. They asked for guidance and protection. They asked that their dead be avenged. They asked that they be allowed to continue serving. Or at least, that was the intent. One of the slides had been changed to say something more like, one horrible tentacled monstrosity per member saying the prayers out loud. The game master assumed that we would crash the show. We chose instead to barricade the doors and leave. After the horrors had ripped apart the cultists, they turned on each other. Soon the hall was left with only the dead and dying, while some stone-cold motherfuckers shot pool across town. However, we didn't account for one thing. Posture wasn't the only game in town. And High Priest of Cthulhu felt 100 monsters being called into the world in his master's name. He investigates and finds the scene of the crime, and then looks into the earlier summoning performed by Henderson. Gravely insulted by the turn of affairs, he uses a sympathetic binding, using what little remained of the corpse to sick a pair of hellhounds on Henderson before returning to his meditations. When they catch up to him, Will's already gone home. The kids are sleeping, and Henderson's going for a walk with Malcolm. We're in the park not far from his house, about to part ways, when we hear a horrible, snarling noise. Pistols drawn, we get a lucky shot off and kill one of them while the second leaps onto Henderson's face. He throws it off and dodges its second coming. Guess who gets a crit to the fucking throat? Yes! Yeah, I'm still bitter that no character other than Simon survived across multiple sessions. So, as the monster kills me, Henderson manages a few solid kicks into it. The summoner, having detected a kill from his beasts, dismissed the survivor, assuming that he got the kill he desired. Henderson called the cops, and Mal was given a small but tasteful funeral at the military's expense. The official police reports read it off as a mauling by some dogs that apparently escaped heavily wounded. The surviving party members raised a glass in his name, while you and I are going to diverge from the sad scene. That night on the way home, I had a terrible premonition. I now wonder, looking back, if this was the same fey mood that took Mike the evening he created Henderson. I looked forums, I googled strategies, I shared small snippets of my sob story online. Well, I accumulated knowledge. Henderson was born of madness and a man's hatred towards blind antagonism. I, on the other hand, turned my eyes towards a magic more solid, practiced, dependable, evil. I delved into deliberate munchkinism for one express purpose. The creation of Simon Breckenridge, British spy. I knew setting out that I would never curb Henderson's madness. I could never hope to match it either. I therefore built Henderson's exact opposite. Competent, sane, cunning. His karmic balance, the yin to his yang. His fucking soulmate in plot annihilation! The perfect support character. When utilized properly, a well-made, played support character is a fucking force multiplier for team effectiveness. Since Henderson was already wrecking the campaign harder than anything I could possibly design, I chose to co-opt Mike's efforts and make the Henderson situation exponentially worse. Since I've been absent for longer than intended from the whole director's cut thing I've been doing, I'm going to power through the rest of the story tonight. So excuse me while I go slip into something a bit more comfortable and grab a snack. Waffle House Millionaire. November 20th, 2012. 2:09 a.m. Simon was intentional? That explains so much! A self-called nowhere. 2:15 a.m. Man, I can't make shit up off of the cuff like you can. Simon was like a week's effort. I skipped a couple classes to perfect my technique. Switching away from the antics of Henderson for a little while, we take the action to London. Most spies who try James Bond level shit get killed. They get lost or abandoned by their own country. Most spies are not Simon Breckenridge. Due to careful manipulation of events behind the scenes, he managed to close multiple gaps in security, sleep with most of the attractive ladies in town, and pass all the blame to other people. He had a distinguished career behind him, and retired at age 45, with enough embezzled government funds to have him tried for treason. Less than a week later, without his spy network in place, his country house is destroyed, and he goes back to work trying to figure out who killed his wife. His one lead skips town on a boat, so he goes to America with only one goal in mind: revenge. He knows that he'll have to use local conditions to his advantage, since he's going in blind and without a penny to his name. After all, the Crown could hardly be caught funding a secret covert operation stateside. Excuse me? I track the yacht and find out where it intends to make landfall. I send a wire back home and discover that it's an influential member of a group known as the Disciples of the Yellow King. Looking around, it's not exactly hard to figure out why he might be interested in this town. Someone apparently declared war on his fucking religion! I decide that finding the group responsible for this would be a wise move, since the enemy of my enemy would make an excellent disposable asset for the given value of friend. Deciding to get up bright and early the next day to search it out, I retired to a pub near my quaint hotel room, intending to sample the local fare. As I walk into Harry's pub, I am greeted by a pair of people in the midst of a heated argument. I'm telling you, Will, this sort of degenerate activity is what's wrong with this country today. You're fucking crazy, Henderson. Each generation has its own thing. You guys had Woodstock. This is just a new thing. Come on. We all know those punks on the TV are talentless hawks. The real masters of the craft are dead and gone. I guess that's true enough. I mean, you give proper credit to the proper men. Well, there's no fucking way in any universe that Tupac was better than Biggie. Let's get a second opinion, Will responds before pointing at Simon. You there, new guy. Yes? Tupac or Biggie? For what, president? I'd rather vote for someone with a sense of pizzazz. What's Liberace doing these days? Henderson smiles. I think I like this guy. Sup, Limey? What brings you across the pond? I'm a secret agent for the Crown. I came here to reenact a James Bond movie and get thrown out under an assumed name. Given your hilariously liberal gun laws, that should take most of my holiday. Which Bond? Connery. The only proper one. Simon notes a hint of distaste in his voice. The only proper one indeed. Nice. Henderson looks at the TV. Hey, they're talking about us again. Your church? Victims of jihad. Will responds, taking a sip of beer. Demon summoning cultist bastards. Stole my notes too. Why do you reckon they did that anyway? Will asks, turning to his compatriot. Need a second guess, some sort of ritual sacrifice. By the way, that taxidermist ever finished stuffing that poodle? I figure I can use him to gape away the kids on Halloween. Simon finishes his mental assessment. These morons will make for excellent cannon fodder. Gentlemen, a proposition. He then explains the yacht situation to the two of them, while Henderson takes a call from Jimmy. He then laughs. You boys handle getting some parachutes and some speakers for a rock concert? I just had the best plan ever. What sort of plan is this? Will asks, watching Henderson. The best one ever. Come on, what have I ever lied to you? Sorry, I hate doing the fake Scottish accent, but it's so fucking good for the story. It's a fake bad Scottish accent, and it's like mandatory to do Henderson. Refusing to explain further, Henderson goes and leaves in his Buick to unknown destinations. Hey, what's poppin', Def? How you doing? We're finishing up the Old Man Henderson Tale live on Twitch to give the viewers on Twitch a little bit more of a reward. So, you know, they get to see part of things early. Sneak peek, if you will. They also get to see Director's Cut of Director's Cut, Part 4. Well, let's out aside. I know where we can grab some speakers. You think you can get some parachutes? I think I can manage. We meet back up here tomorrow. So, while we went off to do some very mundane things, Henderson went to the local Air Force base. He told the man at the gate that he was a veteran, needing to see a doctor, and then drove off to where the vehicles are kept. Since the game master had no idea how base security was supposed to work, he pretty much just fucking walked up to a cargo chopper going through pre-flight checks and punched out the pilot. After hooking up the Buick, he flew across town to an abandoned warehouse and just parked the chopper before going home. There really isn't much more to that story. Apparently, these were the worst MPs in the history of our armed forces. We all come back to the bar, and Simon informs the group that the yacht will arrive in 2 days' time. Henderson and Jimmy rig up a thing that would let them control the various light charges and speakers from a cheap laptop, while Simon reacquainted himself with the controls of a helicopter. The theft and dropping of the yacht clearly happened at this point, so I'm not going to bother reposting that part of the tale here. My version wouldn't nearly be as funny as the way Mike wrote it anyways. By the way, yeah, no, if you skip forward in the video, or if you have not heard of the Old Man Henderson Tale, basically, they go hook up a yacht to a fucking helicopter, drive across town with fucking Celine Dion playing in the cultist's ears, and drop this shit on a fucking skyscraper, just knocking a condo out the sky. They legit just bomb cultists with a fucking yacht. Seriously, you're gonna have to go back and watch that in the video. Yeah, I can't read it twice the same. I seriously can't, which is part of my issue. But if you're wondering, like, it's like way up here. Way up here. Here, I'll reread it for Twitch. Alright. So, we're about right here. So, this is where we're at. Old Man Henderson used all of his cunning to steal a military cargo helicopter. Reed shoryukened the pilot and flew off! And hid it in an abandoned warehouse. Jimmy and Will set up a very expensive surround sound speaker system at the docks, while Simon made and planted a lot of smoke bombs. That night, the yacht pulled in and we made our move. Right as Simon maneuvered the helicopter over the docks, we set off the smoke bombs and activated the speakers. On one side, a 50-piece marching band playing God Save the Queen at max volume. On the other, the audio from the beach scene from Saving Private Ryan. Imagine, for a moment, what being on the dock would have been like. Utter fucking chaos. I jumped down from the helicopter onto the boat and rigged it to lift out of there, during the course of which I ran into the cultist guy and ninja kicked him in the head, knocking him tail over tea kettle and off the boat. I later learned that he broke his neck in the fall. Damn convenient. Otherwise, he might have been able to ID me. We then lifted the boat out of there, switched to our secondary audio on all sides. My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. I was in a vengeful mood, no stealing bastards. So, when the cultists finally got the smoke to clear, their yacht was gone. Their leader dead and Celine Dion was stuck in their heads. Not the best of days. Then we went across town in a stolen military cargo chopper carrying a 40-foot yacht and parked the helicopter above the penthouse, with the yacht about 80 feet above it. Then we just cut the line, jumped out with our parachutes, and watched the yacht ruin a dinner party while placing bets on whether the military would save the chopper, blow it up, or if it would just hover there until it ran out of fuel. Yeah. Old Man Henderson dropped a fucking yacht on the cultists. He dropped a fucking yacht on these cultists. Waffle House Millionaire. November 20th, 2012. 3:30. I totally expected more resistance. I planned that shit out like a Shadowrun style attack, and then nothing happened. I just kind of walked in and jacked the chopper. Hilariously, I didn't even have fly a chopper related skills even in the backstory. The game master just assumed it was there and I went. I fully expected to crash that thing in a field running from like the entire military. At this point in the game, having dropped the yacht, we are under no illusions as to what was going to happen next. The Game Master gave up the investigative undertones. We gave up on the disguising of our war. I don't know why, but the Game Master refused to give us a cop-out. He didn't want to just rage quit and go rocks fall, everyone dies. The session ended with us dropping a yacht. We all walked out of there, fully expecting open warfare when we returned to the table. A week later, we met for the first time as a group, after months of weekly games. It took Henderson about 3 weeks to completely destroy any semblance to a plot or a long-term goal. All that mattered at this point was that our deaths were long, glorious, and brutal. Ironically, it was the first time we all arrived at the table with the same expectation and enthusiasm. Mike wanted to see Henderson die, and the Game Master wanted to kill him. I wanted Simon to draw it out as long as possible. John wanted to see Will continue to give no fucks. In a way, we all succeed in our respective goals. The game picks up about 3 days after the dropping of the yacht. The remaining cultists begin to kill each other in open warfare, and the police and federal investigators are all flipping their shit over the blatant wizardry happening. In the midst of it all, we're hitting high-priority targets and wreaking as much havoc as possible. The Buick is sacrificed as a car bomb to wipe out a police station filled with Shoggoth. We managed to briefly steal a tank from the National Guard and drive right through a bunch of zombies in a shopping mall. Henderson updates his outfit, swapping the Hawaiian shirt for a leather jacket, the back of which is emblazoned with a gnome wearing aviators and throwing up the horns. He also dons a regular pair of gray cargo pants, since he would have more pockets then. Simon put on a tuxedo and refused to take it off, while Will donned a Flogging Molly t-shirt and a utilikilt. Jimmy and Carrie sadly couldn't update their costumes. Their players were pulled out of the game at this point by Jim's parents in the real world, since they insisted on dragging them to some fucking movie. We decided that meant that Henderson made Jimmy get the hell out of Dodge, commanding him to continue the good fight. It came to that. We went back to the abandoned hockey stadium we were using as a base and loaded him up so he'd get out safe, and then dropped him near a military evac zone where he met his family. We raided an Applebee's to get some food supplies and then hit up a hardware store along the way. On the way back, we find out the bad guys have realized we're the cause of all their problems and we're about to launch a coordinated strike against us. They breach the military line between us and them and start to pour after us like a black sea of unthinkable horrors. Along the way, they start to reanimate the dead and dying of both sides to join their charge. We managed to stay a half step ahead all the way back home, occasionally taking a detour through a place like an abandoned shopping mall or the home and garden center at Lowe's. We get back, and Henderson lifts up a gnome from the back of the truck. He smiles and sets it back down before turning to us. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. With that, he made his way to the rink. We all knew then that it was a last stand scenario, and we started barricading the doors. We managed to get 3 of the 4 entrances almost unbeatable, but the 4th one was being broken when Will and I got to it. Simon told him to go and make sure he took as many with him as he could before walking into the mass to rejoin his wife. Will stole a Zamboni out of storage and set a new high score while running over zombies and throwing ammo and such to Henderson. When he died, they were forced to go over the machine he left to get onto the ice, where Henderson was waiting for them. He managed to kill a shitload of them, but then he saw they managed to get rid of Will's impromptu barricade. As if on cue, all 3 of the still locked entrances explode open, and a horde, seemingly without number, comes in. Henderson smiled and called Hoster forth into the world and set the timers. As Hoster stepped forward, he got a rather unusual greeting. I'm gonna have to play the Canadian National Anthem here. Okay, wait. Yeah, I'm gonna have to just insert that there with a freeze frame. The king in yellow pauses, while Mike apparently hits the limits of the internal clock he's been ticking off in his head. Alright, we win. What? The charges go off. I set them for 15 seconds. I needed to make sure he had enough time to arrive. But not enough time to actually arrive. What? He then broke it down and explained the little pieces of information gleaned from investigative portions of the game, meticulous notes from months prior. Together, they painted a very obscure bit of information regarding the nature of gods in this setting. But that's... You bastard! The GM accused dramatically, standing up and pointing. You only just now noticed? Mike returned, politely baffled. The game master then performed the first and only table flip I have ever seen in my years of gaming, before leaving in a huff. After a few moments of awkward silence, I realized that for all the bullshit, this wasn't a satisfying ending. I'm not sure what drove me to do it, but I stood up. I picked up the table, and I moved to the now vacant Game Master's seat. Henderson came to a few moments later, most of his body crushed in rubble. A few feet away, he notices another figure. Stop, he wheezes while reaching into his coat with his one good arm, pulling out a joint he stashed away for further use. I'm dying. Form replies, his voice weak. I must commend you, human. I did not think you capable of such a task. You seem the type to know a lot. Something I learned early in life is that no one expects a sucker punch from someone they underestimate. He then lights his slip with a smile. You know, I've been following you. You know, I never took your gnomes. Fuck, really? Well, now I feel like I might have overreacted a bit. He says this with a cough. He then passes the blunt to Hoster, who after only a moment's hesitation accepts. That's right, he smoked a blunt with an elder god that he just fucking killed. He apparently gave them up for a charity auction. Informs him. You know, I figured out everything but one little detail. Mind if I ask you a question? Shoot. Is Henderson your first or last name? Man, I have no fucking idea. It all starts as it ended. Laughing, the man and the mad god died together. Moments later, Henderson's body was dragged from the rubble 2 days afterwards, and only Jimmy and Carrie, some old preacher man, cared enough to attend his funeral. Waffle House Millionaire, November 20th, 4:49. To clarify in further detail, Henderson asked for them to not waste money on a corpse. His exact words were to just toss me in an old sack of something and send me to the dump. Ain't nobody gonna mourn me or give two shits I even lived. Jimmy opted to get him a rather nice coffin and pay for a decent funeral, even if there was only 2 of them there to mourn. It amounted to nothing, but I felt oddly touched that he felt obligated to make the gesture. Will was buried nearby, since there were apparently friends in life and he didn't have much left in the world after his bar burnt down. Simon was quietly retrieved by his son and put to rest near his wife's grave a week later. Jamie and Carrie managed to get into a nice college together. And since the insurance from... Excuse me? Henderson's life and homeowners insurance policies was good, as well as the money coming in from liquidating Will's assets. It gave them a nice head start on life. Their story didn't quite end there, but I'll let that shit slide for now, since I know you guys only care about one epilogue. Henderson opened his eyes, fighting off a migraine God only knows how long later. He forces himself to his feet and squints around in the blank desert horizon. He looks at the mesas in the distance and the sands in either direction. Well, I'm either in hell or Utah. He lets out a deep sigh, realizing he's out of cigarettes. Utah, knowing my luck. He notices a town in the distance, and has no better idea on what to do next. He begins to wander in its direction. And that better not be a fucking mirage. A self-called nowhere. November 20th, 2012. 4:41. Alright, that's it then. The official final end of the Old Man Henderson story. That was the definitive version, since neither I nor Waffle House Millionaire have much more to expand on from there. There is more in store for our hero, but it's not really just his tale anymore. Sometime in the future, I'll tell you the story of this game I will never top as a DM. It was a first in many ways for me. It was the first game system I designed. Admittedly, it was mostly just Deadlands modded to high hell. It was the first full game I ran. It was the first campaign I named going into it. It was a game so successful and loved by my players that every one of the main characters ended off getting their own spin-off campaigns. So, that's it for Henderson. But keep your eyes peeled for when I lay out the Kings of Nowhere. I'm not going to half-ass it like I did this one, since it's the campaign I feel that I need to do justice. Eli Burning. Waffle House Millionaire. March 6th. 2012. January, February, March. Okay, yes. 5:25. Right, so the tale of Old Man Henderson ended when he died. Or so I thought. A friend of mine gave me a call and asked me if I wanted to play in a game he was going to run. The premise was this. There were various people who were simply amazing during life. Like how there's a normal engineer, and then there's fucking Tony Stark. There's a normal driver, and then there's the Stig. There's a normal detective, and then there's Sherlock Holmes. These people were basically heroes, like the ones of old, expressed in a new way. And when these legends die, they don't completely fade away. Sometimes when one dies with the job unfinished, they end up haunting a place. Some, when they die, they become martyrs to the cause, and never fully removed from memory. And then there's the oddest of cases. When two heroes clash and destroy each other, their duel continues in another place. A place somewhere between life and death. Heaven and hell. Here, their quarrel is settled properly, and the winner gets a second shot at life. I'm not going to tell the full campaign story here, since this isn't the time or place, nor have I had a chance to type it up properly. In the end, Henderson beat a vastly weakened Hofstra, and won his resurrection. When he found out what happens to God when it dies. It doesn't get an afterlife. It just stops existing, and a new one takes its old place in the cosmos. So he did something that threw everyone for a loop. Hijacked Hofstra's essence to contact another god. Nyarlathotep answered the call, since he just loves fucking with the natural, established order of things. Nyarlathotep cuts a deal with Henderson. He'd bring them both back to life as normal people, but he got to keep Hofstra's power unless Hofstra decided to claim it back. Henderson was then reborn into the mortal world. In his new life, he came across some knowledge that his childhood friend Heather was Hofstra reborn while simultaneously regaining all the memories of his past life. He then got Heather drunk, got her to reclaim her power, and sealed it in an amulet, away from Nyarlathotep. Nyarlathotep, being the little bitch he is, decides not to appreciate the irony, and sends cultists to kill him. Which is kind of like trying to put out a wildfire by dumping oil on it. Henderson was last seen at around age 17, grabbing Heather and using some weird ritual to throw them into a parallel universe that Nyarlathotep can't touch. He'd also call young old man Henderson Eli Burning, since that's technically his name now that he's been reborn. Now, the fate of the backstory of Doom. Anonymous request. Due to the epic levels of madness in this story, is it inappropriate for me to ask that Henderson's full backstory be put up somewhere. Because I really want to read it and have the backstory of Doom preserved for all time. Waffle House Millionaire replies, on September the 29th of 2012, 4:30 a.m. Fuck no! I burnt that thing. It was evil. Seriously, the world is a better place without it. Anonymous request. That may be true, but since when does anything about Henderson take the good of the world into account? The backstory is part of the legend. Old Man Henderson's story can't be told in full without its release. Besides, it's 320 pages! The only people who will read it are those who need to use Henderson as inspiration. Translation: have jackass DMs. Waffle House Millionaire. August 10th, 2013. 8 minutes past midnight. I burned that motherfucker. Pretty sure I've said that before. There's only ever existed one copy. It doesn't exist anymore, Anon. Take this up on the talk page if you really feel the need to keep doing this. You should have asked there to begin with. And so ends the tale of our hero, Old Man Henderson. Sometimes, when you have a really fucked up GM, you really just gotta take the nuclear approach. It's not always about doing what's best for you. Sometimes, something takes a hold of you. Something not of this world. And you just gotta watch the world burn. Much love and stay sexy. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. This is the milestone video for reaching 100 YouTube subscribers. I thank each and every single one of you every fucking day for what you're doing. It is amazing that you've managed to pull this off. And I can't wait to make it to milestone 2, milestone 3, make it to 1,000 subscribers, 2,000, 4,000. We've got more stories where this came from. As per our next milestone, well, it was actually already requested that I read That Guy Destroys Psionics Part 2. Well, why would I go to That Guy Destroys Psionics Part 2 for my next milestone? When there's a Part 1. Gotta start somewhere, right? And if I recall correctly, this is one of the few items that go above 1 Henderson. Yeah. This is the only guy that has managed to go over 2 Hendersons of plot derailment, so yeah. You're gonna end up seeing some shit. Thank you everyone for watching. Be safe to each other. And remember, never tolerate that guy. And if you have to, get rid of the plot.